So for most of human history, the biggest, scariest threat we could imagine was a giant rock from space. But then we invented something even more terrifying. Right here on Earth, the nuclear bomb. The idea that a single weapon could wipe out an entire city is frankly pretty nuts. And for decades, our only real defense has been mutually assured destruction, which is basically a fancy way of saying, if you shoot me, I'll shoot you, and we'll all be radioactive dust. It's not exactly a comforting strategy, right? So I started wondering, what if we could do better? What if we could use science and engineering to build a shield instead of just holding a bigger stick? That's where the idea for Project SHIVA came from. Now, this isn't just another missile defense system. Think of it less like a single wall and more like a series of super advanced interconnected safety nets. It's a multi-layered anti-nuclear defense system designed to be smarter, faster, and more comprehensive than anything ever conceived. The ultimate goal here isn't just to shoot down missiles mid-air, though that's a big part of it. The real goal is to media group, security team, monitoring multiple screens, flowchart of defense actions, sequence of threat detection to interception at stock, at distribute_equally, prevent, detect, intercept, mitigate, and even recover from nuclear threats using some of the most cutting-edge technology and AI we can dream up. It's about making nuclear weapons obsolete. So today, we're going to dive deep into the engineering, the physics, and the crazy cool tech behind each layer of this hypothetical system. We'll look at everything from media group, AI diplomat, robot handshake, quantum radar dish, orbital laser satellite in space at stock at distribute_equally, AI diplomats, quantum radar, orbital lasers, and swarms of decontamination drones. This is a massive thought experiment, a blueprint for a future where we can finally put the nuclear genie back in the bottle. So grab your safety goggles, because we're about to engineer our way to a safer world. This is Project SHIVA, the ultimate anti-nuclear defense cartoon brought to life. Alright, so the first and most important layer of Project SHIVA has nothing to do with blowing stuff up. It's all about prevention. Because let's be real, the best way to win a fight is to avoid it in the first place. This is the preventive phase, and it's basically a giant global-scale early warning system powered by some seriously clever AI. Imagine a network of every satellite, sensor, and open-source data stream on the planet. We're talking social media trends, economic data, military movements, you name it, all feeding into one massive brain. This AI, let's call it the Oracle, is constantly sifting through trillions of data points. It's looking for the tiny, almost invisible signals that could hint at a nation even about launching a nuclear weapon. The Oracle isn't just a passive observer, it's an active participant. It can detect a suspicious buildup of materials at a secret facility from satellite imagery, cross-reference it with unusual financial transactions, and flag it for human analysts in seconds. But here's the really cool part. AI-augmented diplomacy. The system can run millions of simulations to predict how a nation might react to different diplomatic strategies. It could suggest the perfect combination of sanctions, incentives, or back-channel communications to de-escalate a crisis before it even starts. It's like having the world's best chess grandmaster, who's also a psychologist and an economist, playing for Team Humanity. The goal is to make the political cost of even preparing a launch so high that no one would ever dare try. So instead of waiting for a siren, SHIVA is listening for the whispers. It's analyzing chatter, monitoring supply chains, and even tracking the sentiment of military leaders through public statements. This pre-launch intelligence is our first line of defense. It's not about pointing guns. It's about extending a hand, but a hand that's guided by an almost omniscient level of information. By identifying and neutralizing threats at the source, the human decision to launch, we can stop a nuclear war without firing a single shot. It's the quietest part of the system, but it's also the most powerful. Okay, so let's say our AI diplomat had a bad day and prevention fails. A rogue state decides to push the big red button. Now we're in a race against time, and I mean a short race. This is the detection phase, and its job is to scream incoming the instant a missile leaves its silo. Our current systems are good, but they can take precious minutes to confirm a launch. With Project SHIVA, we need to do it in under 2 seconds. That's less time than it took me to say this sentence. How is that even possible? Well, it starts with a whole new generation of satellites. We're talking about a massive constellation of satellites in low, medium, and geostationary orbits, creating a completely gapless view of the Earth's surface. These aren't just regular cameras, they're equipped with next-gen infrared sensors so sensitive they can detect the fleeting heat signature of a rocket engine igniting against the background of the Earth. But heat can be faked. So, to avoid false positives from, say, a really big conventional rocket launch, we add another layer quantum radar. Unlike traditional radar, this stuff is theoretically unjammable and can detect the subtle quantum disturbances caused by a large, fast-moving object entering the upper atmosphere. It gives us an instant, undeniable confirmation of the missile's trajectory and speed. Now, all this raw data, the infrared bloom, the radar track, the seismic tremors from the launch site, is fed directly into our AI. The AI doesn't just see a launch, it models it. In milliseconds, it calculates the missile's probable trajectory, its potential targets, and its payload type based on its burn pattern and ascent profile. It's like having a supercomputer that can solve the world's hardest physics problem in the blink of an eye. This isn't just detection, it's instantaneous comprehension. Within those 2 seconds, the system knows what was launched, where it's going, and is already handing off the data to the next phase, the interceptors. The eye in the sky has seen the threat, and the clock is ticking. The alarm has sounded, the missile is in the air, and now it's time to get our hands dirty. Welcome to the interception phase, which is, without a doubt, the flashiest part of the whole system. This is where we stop the warhead from ever reaching its target. Our primary tool is a network of orbital laser platforms. Now, I know what you're thinking, space lasers. But this isn't science fiction. We're talking about massive, chemically powered lasers parked in strategic orbits. Once the detection system hands off the target data, these platforms can swivel, lock on, and fire a concentrated beam of energy at the rising missile. The goal isn't to vaporize it in a giant explosion, which would be messy. Instead, the laser heats the missile's skin so rapidly that it causes structural failure, basically making it tear itself apart from the stress. But what if the missile is launched on a cloudy day, or uses a special reflective coating? We need backups. That's where our hypersonic drones come in. Think of these as the guard dogs of the atmosphere. They are pre-deployed, flying at the edge of space at over Mach 5, and they can be vectored to an intercept course in seconds. They don't carry explosives. Instead, they are essentially giant, incredibly fast metal darts. Their job is to achieve a kinetic kill, smashing into the missile at such high velocity that both are completely obliterated. No boom, just a cloud of very small, very harmless metal fragments burning up in the atmosphere. It's the ultimate high-speed fender bender. And for the really tricky targets, or if multiple missiles are launched at once, we bring out the specialized tools. We could deploy small, agile probes that release a targeted electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, right next to the missile. This pulse wouldn't be big enough to affect anything on the ground, but it would be more than enough to fry the missile's sensitive guidance and detonation electronics, turning it into a very expensive, very dumb piece of metal. Looking even further ahead, we're conceptualizing things like temporary plasma domes that could incinerate anything passing through, or even magnetic nets to capture and disable warheads. This is about having a deep, versatile toolbox, so no matter what the threat throws at us, we have the right tool to take it apart piece by piece. Okay, this is the chapter I hope we never ever have to use. But if you're building the ultimate defense system, you have to plan for the worst-case scenario. What if a warhead somehow gets through all our interceptors? This is the mitigation phase, and its job is to be the final, desperate line of defense, an invisible suit of armor for a city. The goal here is to contain and suppress the effects of a nuclear detonation just as it happens, to minimize the devastation. It sounds impossible, but the physics is fascinating. The first moments of a nuclear blast are all about the release of intense energy, gamma rays, X-rays, and neutrons. So, our first shield is electromagnetic. The moment a detonation is predicted for a specific area, a network of ground-based generators would create an incredibly powerful, short-lived magnetic field in the airspace above the target. This magnetic bottle wouldn't stop the blast wave, but it could deflect a significant portion of the charged particles and ionizing radiation, channeling them upwards and away from the population below. At the same time, a fleet of high-altitude drones would release a precisely targeted cloud of boron-10 aerosol. Boron is a fantastic neutron absorber. A dense cloud of it in the right place could effectively soak up the deadly neutron radiation from the initial fission reaction, dramatically reducing the immediate radioactive fallout. But we're not done. To counter the thermal pulse, that blinding, incinerating flash of heat, we'd deploy another layer. This time, it's a cloud of graphene spheres. These tiny, incredibly strong nanostructures are excellent at absorbing and dissipating heat. A dense cloud of them could act like a temporary smokescreen, absorbing the thermal energy before it can ignite fires across the city. Finally, for the blast wave itself, we'd have pre-installed nanoparticle walls in critical infrastructure. These are materials designed to instantly change their physical state when subjected to immense pressure, becoming incredibly rigid and strong for a few microseconds, just long enough to weather the initial shockwave. It's not about stopping the bomb, it's about robbing it of its most destructive powers. A detonation has occurred, and despite our best mitigation efforts, the damage is done. The crisis isn't over. In fact, a new one is just beginning. This is the post-impact phase, where the focus shifts from defense to recovery. The immediate aftermath of a nuclear event is a chaotic and contaminated nightmare. The number one priority is dealing with the radioactive fallout. To do this, we deploy massive swarms of autonomous biodecontamination drones. These aren't your typical quadcopters. They're equipped with specialized sensors to map the radiation hotspots with pinpoint accuracy. They then spray a custom-engineered biological agent, think of it as super-hungry microbes, that binds to radioactive isotopes like cesium and strontium. These microbes essentially eat the fallout, incorporating the radioactive particles into their cellular structure. Later, a second wave of larger drones comes through and collects this now contained biomass for safe disposal. For the ground itself, we'd use advanced soil treatment techniques. This could involve phytoremediation, using specific plants like sunflowers that are known to draw radioactive elements up from the soil into their tissues. We could also use a process called vitrification, where powerful electrical currents are passed through the most contaminated soil, melting it into a stable, glass-like substance that permanently traps the radioactive material, preventing it from leaching into the groundwater. It's a massive, robotic cleanup on a scale never seen before. But the recovery isn't just environmental, it's humanitarian. The AI that helped us in the prevention phase now takes on a new role as the ultimate logistics manager. It would process drone imagery and sensor data to create a real-time map of the damage, identifying safe evacuation routes and the locations of survivors. It would manage the flow of medical supplies, food, and temporary shelters, directing resources to where they are needed most, cutting through the fog of war and chaos. It would even help manage the flow of displaced people, preventing the kind of refugee crisis that could destabilize the entire region. This phase is about resilience, using technology not just to fight, but to heal and rebuild, ensuring that even in the face of the unthinkable, society can endure and recover. So, we've built this incredible technological shield, but technology alone isn't the answer. If people think they can get away with launching a nuke because we have a fancy defense system, it could actually make the world more dangerous. This is where the final and perhaps most complex layer comes in, the ethical phase. This is about building a psychological and political deterrent so strong that it reinforces the technological one. It's about changing the rules of the game so that launching a nuclear weapon becomes not just a military failure, but a complete and total political and economic suicide. The first part of this is a concept called automatic rollback. The moment a verified nuclear launch is detected by SHIVA, a pre-agreed upon global protocol kicks in instantly and automatically. The aggressor nation is immediately cut off from the global financial system. No transactions, in or out. Their internet access is severed from the rest of the world. All international trade halts. Their diplomatic credentials are voided. This isn't a sanction that gets debated for weeks at the United Nations. It's an automatic digital excommunication from the global community that happens in seconds. The message is clear. If you push that button, you cease to be a part of the modern world. This is all laid out in a new international treaty, the SHIVA Compact, which all participating nations agree to uphold. To make this all transparent, we introduced the Nuclear Harmonization and Proliferation Safety Index, or the Nuclear HPS Index. This is a live, publicly available score for every country on Earth, updated in real time by the SHIVA AI. It analyzes a country's compliance with non-proliferation treaties, its military posture, its political stability, and its transparency. Countries with high scores get benefits, preferred trade status, access to certain technologies, while countries with low scores face increasing scrutiny and restrictions. It gamifies peace. The ultimate deterrent isn't just the fear of being shot down, it's the certainty of becoming a pariah state with a score of 0, utterly isolated and broken before your missile even reaches its target. So, from AI diplomats and quantum radar to orbital lasers and decontamination drones, Project SHIVA is more than just a collection of cool gadgets. It's a complete rethinking of what nuclear defense means. It's a shift from a strategy based on fear and retaliation to one based on prevention, protection, and resilience. For too long, we've been living under a dark cloud, accepting that the most powerful weapons ever created are held in check only by a fragile promise of mutual destruction. This project imagines a different path, one where we use our collective ingenuity not to build more destructive weapons, but to build a system that renders them powerless. This holistic approach is what makes SHIVA truly revolutionary. It understands that you can't solve this problem with technology alone. You need to combine the hard power of interception with the soft power of diplomacy. You need to integrate the physics of mitigation with the logistics of recovery. And most importantly, you have to wrap it all in a strong ethical framework that makes the use of such weapons politically and economically unthinkable. It's about creating a system where every layer, from the AI brain to the international treaties, works in harmony to build a safer, more secure world for everyone. Of course, Project SHIVA is a massive undertaking, a thought experiment on the outer edge of what's possible today. But every major leap forward in human history started as a bold idea. By laying out this blueprint, by dreaming of what could be, we take the first step toward building it. We prove that we don't have to be passive victims of our own technology. We can be its masters, and we can engineer a future where the fear of nuclear annihilation is finally a thing of the past. Thanks for watching.